He loses several really close friends that he made along the way on this adventure, and he has to see them die. But would it have been better if he never knew these friends at all? Hello friends, bonjour mes amis, welcome to the Strong Stoic Podcast. I am your host, of course, Brandon Tumblin, and one of the things I see a lot of people struggle with almost universally, and by the way, let's take a second here, it's the new year, right? I think, pretty sure, the first episode of the new year, so here's to a wonderful 2022, and I have no intentions of slowing down with the podcast, I have no intentions of slowing down with the content I'm putting out, going to be doing a lot more, in fact. Anyways, let's go on to the topic. Happy New Year's. One of the things I see a lot of people struggle with almost universally is suffering and pain in life, right? And hey, I get it. Pain and suffering sucks, right? Physical pain particularly has evolved to be extremely convincing. Basically, pain says, get the hell out or you will die. And you do not want to die. So essentially, physical pain can be very convincing. It's evolved to be that way. But physical pain is not the only type of pain, right? Obviously, there's emotional pain, there's existential pain, there's grief, there's shame, all the negative emotions that humans are succumb to at times. And it can be very tempting in life to seek to avoid this at all costs, right? It can be very tempting to say, okay, I want to get rid of all the pain in life, all the suffering, and so on. For example, you see some who don't want to make too many friends because they feel, hey, like, they're just going to let me down, right? They're just going to hurt me. They're just going to betray me. So why do I want to make any friends? Why do I want to make any friends, right? Or, perhaps you don't want to get into like a long-term relationship because, eventually one of you will die and it's like, okay, I don't want to fall in love with someone because then there's going to be heartbreak at the end of that. Why do I want that? Very cynical way of looking at things. Or maybe you don't want to have kids because, eventually they're going to leave, right? You have kids, that means they're going to leave. They're going to grow up and leave your home and then you're going to be left picking up the pieces. So, you don't want that pain, right? There's no shortage of pain and suffering to avoid in life. That's for damn well sure. So I suppose the question is the dance worth it? So that's what we're going to get into today. But first, I'm changing the structure of the episodes just a little bit. I feel like I need to mention the Patreon as well because I'm starting to push that a little bit more. There's going to be more content on there. So if you want to support me on my Patreon, you can check me out there. $5 a month is going to give you like a lot of extra content. Of course, everything I've been doing up until this point is still going to be going on for free. Again, I stand by my word. I'm never going to charge for the majority of my content, but I do need to put some things in there and build a community in Patreon. So check me out there. Thanks to all those supporting me on there. Also, I need to mention Medium. I am starting to get back into writing blog posts on Medium. So if you check that out there, you'll see basically transcripts, more or less, but like really articles on the topics that I cover in the episode. So it's a really great reference if you want to go back and look at the topics and sort of go through what I discussed there. So check me out on Patreon and check me out on the blog post on Medium. There will be one for this episode as well. Now, moving on to the topic. The good, the bad, and the ugly, they often come together, right? Like, no matter what you do in life, there will be good and there will be bad. And I'm using these terms quite loosely because things aren't inherently good or bad, particularly from the Stoic sense, right? But what I mean is that some things will give you positive emotion and other things will give you negative emotion in a very real sense, okay? So I'm not trying to make like a moral judgment here, good or bad. I'm trying to say some things make you feel good, some things make you feel bad, and that's definitely true. So, for example, when you make the choice to go exercise, let's say it's New Year, so you're going to go back to the gym. In a sense, what you are doing is you're bringing the pain and the suffering to the forefront, right? You're saying, I'm going to deal with this suffering right now. I'm going to voluntarily take on pain and suffering. And in facing that challenge, you activate dopamine circuits and endorphins, which make you feel great afterwards. So, but basically you have to physically suffer in some sense in order to get that good emotion at the end of it. In the same way, you'll feel great throughout the day that you've worked out, and then what happens in the morning? Well, your neck's a little stiff, your back's a little stiff, you're sore, you have DOMS, and that kind of sucks. But again, it's this thing where the good sort of naturally comes along with the bad, and it's very difficult. In fact, it's almost impossible to have any good in life without a bad that's sort of attached to it. Essentially, you can feel good from things, such as going to the gym. You feel great afterwards, but it comes at a cost. It's not free, right? In other words, you could say that the good came with some bad attached to it. It's sort of like baggage. It's luggage that you just can't get rid of. Here's another example. Let's say you find the perfect partner, right? So the one you've been waiting for all your years, and your romantic ideas have finally come true. You live a happy life and you have great children. And yes, there's some up and downs, of course. There's always up and downs in relationships. There always will be, but it was a really good relationship. Well, eventually one of you are going to die, right? And that's going to cause grief on the other person. And I'm not making the naive case that death is inherently bad at all, because I don't genuinely believe that death is inherently bad. And I'm going to use an example on that one later. But my point is that for you to have all that good, for you to live that wonderful life with someone, it's going to come at the cost of something. Because for you to grow, to be really bonded with someone and love them genuinely, when you lose them, you're going to grieve over that. And certainly, the Stoics say about attachments, you shouldn't have attachments per se, but really they would never tell you not to grieve, because that's suppressing emotions. Okay, so they would encourage you to accept death as it is and recognize the beauty in life due to that death. But they would never say you shouldn't grieve for someone that you genuinely love or care about. Of course not. But this is hard for a lot of us to do, right? It's really, really hard for us to accept the good and bad in life. And so how do we do it, right? Like, how do we do that? How do we, get in a relationship knowing that eventually it's going to end, whether we break up or whether one of us dies or whether we both die or whatever happens? Eventually it's going to end. Well, it's really the only mentality you can have about this is sort of this unwavering faith that the good is stronger, sort of this unwavering love of the beauty in life, despite the imperfections, despite the tragedy, despite the suffering and pain in life, right? But that's something, it's almost it's an act of faith, and it's an, again, unwavering love of life despite the bad parts of it. And there's this old Garth Brooks song. I don't know how old it is. Probably not that old, maybe 20 years. But there's this old Garth Brooks song, who's a country singer, called The Dance. And I got brought up on music like this. So it's a country song. And the song is basically about just that, right? It's about going through life, and really, when you go through life, you inherently sign up for some bad parts of it, right? And so it's very easy to get focused on that negative aspect. Okay, well, I have life. Well, I'm going to die someday. It's like, yeah, you're going to die someday, but you get to live every day in between now and then. So it's very convenient for us to focus on, oh yeah, someday I'm going to die. Well, are you dead right now? There's still time for you. There's still time for you. And so this song that Garth Brooks wrote, The Dance, there's this chorus. Of course it has a chorus, but the chorus goes, and I quote, "I could have missed the pain, but I'd have had to miss the dance." And I really can't think of a better way of thinking about these things, right? Like, when you're talking about life and sort of going after things like that, going after the good things in life is always going to have a cost for that. And so the way you get over having to deal with that cost is by accepting the fact that if you didn't pay that cost, yeah, you wouldn't pay for the cost, you wouldn't have the pain, but you also wouldn't have had the dance. You also wouldn't have had the beautiful parts of life. So in the same way, when you sign up for life, and you don't really voluntarily sign up for life, I suppose, you're sort of brought into this world kicking and screaming, you take that on. You take, the moment you choose, or the moment you breathe your first breath, you're sentencing yourself to death, right? That's how it works. And it's like, yeah, okay, you can focus on that, or you can focus on the good parts of life. You can focus on the good things. And you can certainly say, yeah, death sucks. Death's going to be terrible, but death is the cost of life. Without death, you can't have life. It's not how it works. So that's something that's really worth considering. I could have missed the pain, but I've had to miss the dance. So you can go through life and avoid ever doing anything worthwhile. You can do that. You can absolutely do that. You can go through life, never make any friends, never get together in a relationship, and just, sit in your home by yourself, never do anything for the world, just go to work, pay your bills, yada, yada, yada. never go climb the mountain you wanted to do, never take the trip you wanted to take. Like, you can do that. No one's going to come and, not make you do that. But the question is, well, what are you doing there, right? What are you doing there? Because all you're doing, you think you're avoiding pain, right? That's what you think you're doing. Okay, well, if I don't have kids, if I don't fall in love, if I don't climb that mountain, if I don't take a risk, well, I'm going to be okay. If I don't demand the best for myself, I'm going to be okay, right? Because, well, there's no pain. If I don't put myself in a vulnerable position, I'm not going to have any pain. Well, guess what? Life's base is suffering. I really think the Buddhists had it right on this. Life is suffering. And so if you choose to not go and do the things that are worthwhile in life, that generally can be very difficult sometimes, well, guess what? You're not going to avoid pain. You're not going to avoid suffering. You're just going to avoid life. You're just going to avoid the beautiful parts of life. So you can trade that suffering. You can trade the suffering that is inherent to life for something greater. You can trade that suffering for something. And maybe your suffering will be quantifiably more. Like, maybe if you live a meaningful life, you may have more suffering than if you just choose to stay in your house by yourself. Maybe not. But you don't get to choose that. What you get to choose is what you suffer for. So the point is that by missing the dance doesn't mean that you miss any amount of pain, really. Maybe you miss a little bit, maybe. But really what it means, the most significant part of missing the dance, is that you miss the dance. It's like, so what are you going to do? You're going to not do the wonderful things that you want to do in life because of the pain that's going to come along with it? You're not going to avoid the pain, man. You're not going to avoid the pain. All you're going to do is say no to the wonderful aspects of life. As Epictetus said, this is one of my favorite quotes of all time, and I quote, "How long are you going to wait before you demand the best for yourself?" The hard pill to swallow is that often demanding the best for yourself has a steep cost, okay? But again, the way forward here is an unwavering optimism. You see this theme again and again because it's such an important concept to understand. There's this song lyric that comes to mind, and I quote, "Half an hour of sunshine is worth a week of rain." What a statement, man. 30 minutes of sunshine is worth a week of rain. How optimistic is that? How optimistic? It's unbelievable. So what are you going to do? Are you going to focus on that rain, or are you going to focus on that half hour that you have in the sunlight? Another reference here. In Pocahontas, I'm going to get back to the kid movies right away. I was going to say Kisney, some kind of combination between kids and Disney. Anyways, in Pocahontas, there's this white settler, and he falls in love with a native. If you haven't seen Pocahontas, basically it's a group of natives, Native Americans, and then the settlers come in, and they're settling the place there, and he falls in love with this native, Pocahontas. And things just go terrible, right? Because of the hostility between the two groups. So, the white man falls in love with the Native American, and guess what? They fall in love, and things go great, and then things go terrible because there's all this hostility between the two groups. And Pocahontas actually says, and this is very fascinating because this is sort of illustrates that wavering of faith that we often have in life. She says, "It would have been better if we never met. None of this would have happened." Okay? How often have you thought that? Man, it would be nice if I just wasn't born, I wouldn't have to deal with any of this. Man, it would be nice if I didn't, get that job because now I don't have to deal with all this responsibility. Man, it would be nice if I didn't have kids because, goddamn, now I have all this responsibility that I have to care for. Or what if you're in a very unfortunate position where someone very close to you dies? It's like, man, I wish we never met because now I have to deal with this pain of them leaving. Well, he responded with, and I quote, "I'd rather die tomorrow than live 100 years without knowing you." Like, what a statement, man. What a statement. I'd rather die tomorrow than live 100 years without knowing you. I would rather not live anymore, just end my life right now with the good that I've had, than to go the rest of my life without having any positive emotion whatsoever, without ever falling in love. And Pocahontas, yeah, you're right. None of this would have happened. The war wouldn't have happened, and all the pain that we feel right now wouldn't have happened nor falling in love would have happened, nor recognizing the beauty, nor transcending the racial division. And I know that's corny. I suppose my romantic side is coming out a little bit. But they nailed it right on the head with that. That scene where Pocahontas is like, man, like, God, I wish we never met. Like, it's like, yeah. Well, if we didn't meet, none of this bad stuff would have happened, but we wouldn't have gotten a chance to have this wonderful dance. And that's why I mentioned earlier that death is indifferent in many ways. Because to this individual, death is not so bad as long as he's lived a great life, right? Death is not so bad as long as he knows that he had a day to spend with Pocahontas, with someone that he genuinely loved. Because it's not always a bad thing, right? Death is not always a bad thing. We think about it as being that, but it's like, is it? It's not. It's indifferent. Now, let me ask you that question. This is something really worth considering. Would you rather live 100 years without ever feeling love in any shape or form? Or would you have a shorter life? I'm not gonna ask you if you'd rather die tomorrow, because that might be a bit too extreme. But if I could tell you, you could live 100 years without ever feeling love in any shape or form, like you can just go through life and just live in the house by yourself, never do anything, never take any risk, and never have to deal with all those negative emotions of heartbreak and all that stuff. Or you can have a life that's just full of love, but that's significantly shorter. Let's say 40, 50, around there. What would you choose? It's something that's really worth toying with. And this theme is demonstrated beautifully. I know I'm throwing in a lot of references here, but like I love this theme so much. The theme is also illustrated very well in the Hobbit movies. You see Bilbo Baggins, he leaves his comfortable home, his shire, and literally goes to face a dragon and war. Like, he's going to war, man. And he's like a kid, right? Like, hobbits are like little short people. They're just children. They don't grow any facial hair. And he's like, okay, let me just leave this comfortable life and go off to war. And along the way, he almost dies a million times, right? He gets attacked by spiders, like really big spiders. That freaks me out just to say that. But he gets attacked by spiders. He gets attacked by all kinds of orcs and goblins. And he almost dies like a million times, right? He's on the edge of death. He's walking all day long without his nice handkerchief that he forgot at home. He's exhausted. He's physically exhausted all the time. And the adventure literally breaks his heart. Literally. The adventure breaks his heart. He comes face to face with, first, the great evil in the world. Like, he left this home where, yeah, people bicker and they're mean to each other every now and then, but like genuinely good people, and all they care about is just having fun and having a good time. He went from that to being face to face, looking evil directly in the eyes. He loses several really close friends that he made along the way on this adventure, and he has to see them die. But would it have been better if he never knew these friends at all? Was the dance worth the pain? Would it have been better if Bilbo just, stayed in his little hobbit hole and never left? It's like, yeah, okay, let's go through the list here. He wouldn't have come face to face with evil. He wouldn't have had to face a dragon. He wouldn't have had to face spiders. He wouldn't have had to witness war. He wouldn't have had to see his friends get killed. He wouldn't have had to deal with that grief. But he also wouldn't have made those friends to begin with. He also wouldn't have had an adventure that he can look back on with pride. He also wouldn't have contributed to the world in a positive way. He could have missed the pain, but he would have missed the dance. And in one of the theme songs from those movies, I'm going to give you another quick lyric here, and I quote, "Many places I have been, many sorrows I have seen, but I don't regret, nor will I forget all who took that road with me." And so even though the adventure broke his poor little innocent heart, it's still better than never having the adventure at all. Just some closing remarks here. I really believe the Buddhists had it right. I think life is suffering. I do. But I don't think it's just suffering. I think there's so much beauty in the world. There's so many opportunities to dance. And yeah, that dance is going to cost you something. You're going to have a bit of pain because of that. But I think the only mentality that you can have in life is that the dance is worth the pain. Thank you for listening, guys. I hope it was a meaningful episode for you. If you can do one thing for me, share this episode with a friend and the podcast with a friend. I think a lot of you have been doing that, and I really genuinely do appreciate that. Check me out on Instagram. I post pretty regularly on there. Instagram, Twitter, the YouTubes. Subscribe to me on there. I really appreciate you guys listening. Here's to the start of a wonderful brand new year, so take advantage of it. I'm not going to bug you anymore. I'm going to bug you enough throughout the rest of the year, so cheers until next time.